Joining us now, you can check him out on YouTube. You can listen here, stream it on the Odyssey app, or go to youtube.com/ use the @ the fan Milwaukee. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff they tell you to do on YouTube. He is Jim Owczarski of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, Bucks beat writer. Follow him on Blue Sky at Jim Owczarski. Jim, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I like to tell you that I'm in a better mood than the last time we talked, but you and Eric Name just get me yelling and screaming at you, so I apologize. Maybe it'll get better between now and next summer. But Bobby Portis, from a casual fan perspective, woohoo! Bobby Portis is back. We get chat. Bobby. Great. They're happy. Okay. So they're going to buy tickets. The little kids wear Bobby Portis jerseys. Grown men wearing Bobby Portis jerseys. Awesome. Great. Okay. That's fine. I continue to struggle with the fact that bringing back the same crew is going to give us different results than what we've seen in the past. I struggle with this. Now, we'll get to Brook Lopez because obviously I don't think anybody thinks he's coming back. But outside of that, Ryan Rollins, I like Ryan Rollins, nothing personal. AJ Green, Bobby Portis. We'll see what happens with Gary Trent and stuff like that. We'll get to that too. But I'm just struggling to see, you're going to pay Bobby Portis, whatever it is, $14 million a year, whatever that number is. Is he back to coming off the bench at that number, or is he somehow or another in the starting lineup with Giannis? Because if that's the case, then either Giannis is playing the 3 and Portis is playing the 4, or Bobby's playing the 5, and I really don't want Bobby playing the 5 every night.
No, well, first of all, I mean, you're a liar when you say maybe you'll stop yelling next summer. I think
you're probably right. Yeah,
every summer since I've known.
That's right. Every summer. That's correct. Yes.
No, look, Bobby Portis is a few months younger than Giannis. And is still a walking double-double. Like he is that 4-5 backup that is your stretch for, look, 14.6 million, whatever it is, Sparky, that's just above the non-tax mid-level exception. It's a good number for the Bucks. It's a short-term contract into his 30, 31, 32 season. Like it's a good deal for both parties. He's not the issue. Like, Giannis isn't the issue. Bobby Portis isn't the issue for why this team has not succeeded, right? And to your point of, like, running it back, we'll see. I do think re-signing Gary Trent would be a good idea. The Bucks haven't had a 26-year-old shooting guard since when, Sparky, right? That could make
it's been a while. Michael Redd
% of his threes, and you don't have to sub him out at the end of a game because he's a liability, right? So that I think I get what you're saying. If you were to tell me Doc Rivers is going to start a group similar to the group that ended the season when Giannis is the oldest player on the court, that's a good thing, right? Because that's the Bucks getting younger and finding more athletic, dynamic players. We'll see how this shakes out in the next 24, 48 hours, week, Sparky, but Bobby's not the issue. Resigning Bobby's not the issue. You need players. You need good players. Giannis is going to miss, 15, 17 games? Bobby starts and is going to give you 18 and 12 and give you a good chance to win some of those games, right, Spark? So that Bobby, again, is him coming back is not a thing. That's not a bad thing. It's what does John Horst do with the other resources available here in the coming day, week, etc.
Okay. So you said, well, it's not Giannis's fault. It's not Bobby's fault that they're not doing what they want to do. Well, no, it is Giannis's fault because outside of last year, he's been hurt a majority of the postseasons he's been in and has missed first-round games. And they overcame it the one year when he got injured and missed part of that Atlanta series and miraculously came back from the hyperextended knee to win the championship against Phoenix. But for the most part, he's been the one that has been hurt in the first round of games. And that's why everybody wants to get him mad at John Horst or Bud or whoever. It's like, well, if your best player's not on the floor, how are you expecting to win? Not many teams are going to win without their best player on the floor. And that's exactly what's happened. So at the end of the day, he's got to be healthy in the postseason. That's the first thing. The second thing is this whole idea of, we're going to compete for a top 6. No, it's not Herb Cole. Let's compete for the 8 and see if we can make the playoffs and see what happens. But man, if we're being real, now we'll see what John Horst does because like you said, he's got the mid-level exception, which is like $14 million. He's got ways to go about adding players and doing whatever it is that he's going to do. But if we're being honest, what do they need? Well, they need a point guard because there's no Damian Lillard for a good portion of this season. And if the idea is you're going to get a younger point guard for the next 3 to 5 years or whatever, then that's the guy that eventually replaces Damian Lillard. So, okay, fine, you need that. I think the other part about this that you definitely need is some type of 3-and-D player for the wing because you don't really necessarily have that guy. Anytime Kyle Kuzma's on the floor, I don't think anybody's going to be excited. If Kyle Kuzma's in the starting lineup, I love you, Jim Owczarski, but you're going to hear me screaming inside Fiserv for him from Hale's Corners if he's in the starting lineup on opening night, if that's the best they can do. So that's where I get a little frustrated, I would say, over how this is all going to shake out. You guys are selling, they're going to be younger. Yeah, but just because you're younger doesn't mean you're better. Yes, you're younger. Yes, you can get out and run a little bit more, but it doesn't mean the players that are younger are better than the players that they're replacing are older. What about Brook Lopez? What kind of chances or odds do you think Brook Lopez is back? Because it doesn't feel like they're very good to me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the sort of national reporting is that, it will be interest elsewhere, and there should be. Look, to use a baseball analogy with Brook now is that third, fourth major league starter, right? Like you need that guy to get you through the whole regular season, to win you games, to eat up innings. But once you get to the playoffs, he's a bullpen guy. And so that's, I think, so there's value in that. There's value in Brook Lopez starting 82 games, shooting 38% from three, blocking 2 shots a game. But clearly, Sparky, in the playoffs, he cannot play in certain series. So I think, and look, and everyone knows that. I think Brook knows that. And so what is that value? If you were to tell me, Sparky, Brook's coming back at, I don't know, $5-6 million, which is seems to be that range you're hearing. But you were to tell me, look, there's a different type of 5, and the Bucks are going to play 4 big men, which they haven't really done.
Right.
I can rock with that because that means you're getting through the regular season and you've got optionality as a player. I don't know who that is, though, Sparky. So Brook is interesting. I'm not sure there. I'll just throw out a name because he's easy and he sort of fits what we're talking about, which is like a Kevon Looney, right? Not yet 30. A lot of miles on those legs, but you know what he's about, right? He's 6'9", he's playoff experience, champ, all that good stuff. Different kind of dude, right? Like he's not going to shoot, he's not really going to score.
He's going to get hurt.
Doing right? Can he match up? If you were to tell me Brook and Kevon Looney are on this team for a combined total of $8 million, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's a better playoff matchup, right, going forward. And I think a lot of people will probably be cool with that. So we'll see about that. Now, look, Sparky, I'm going to bring this back. You mentioned a different team, younger guys. What John Horst needs to do is tap into the GM who in 2018 signed a much younger Brook Lopez to the biannual, signed some no-name from Portland named Pat Connaughton. 2 years later, signed some tarnished image guy and Bobby Portis. 20 also signed some guy no one ever heard of named Brent Forbes, who went on to outscore Jimmy Butler in a playoff series. Like, those aren't sexy moves. At the time, Sparky, no one knew those would be core players of an Eastern Conference team, best team in the league 3 years in a row, of a title team. I think that's where the Bucks need to get back to.
Okay, but 1 second. Okay, but 1 second. I want to ask you then a follow-up question. I'm good giving John Horst all the praise for everything you just said. I'm fine with that. But how much of that was Budenholzer taking what he was given and getting the most out of him when he was the coach? And do you feel like Doc Rivers can do similar if given those same type of players in that situation? That's
a fair question. And I don't know that for sure. I think Bud had a system that clearly, Brook, I don't know if anyone knew at the time Brook would turn into a DPOY stretch big, right?
Yeah.
The Bucks clearly had some stats and some analytics that showed he could be that. Would he? I don't know. Same thing with Bobby. Bobby never shot that many threes, never made that many threes, right? Is Doc that guy? Time will tell. I don't know. All I can say, if you're the Bucks and he is the head coach, it took him too long, Sparky, to get to that lineup in Game 5 in Indiana.
Agreed.
That's the lineup that should have started Game 1 after a week off.
I'm with you.
So if you were, and this is unfortunate, Sparky, we didn't do any exit interviews with John or Doc. I don't know if we're not going to see them till media day. I don't know. But if you were to tell me if the pitch is Doc's going to run that kind of offense or play that kind of style, then yeah, I think if there's that sort of cohesiveness with him and John in that way, I think those right sort of role players could work. But we need to hear that from Doc though.
But isn't Doc closer to Jason Kidd than he is to Mike Budenholzer? I mean, Doc, if he gets Brooke Lopez, when Bud got Brooke Lopez is playing with his back to the basket and killing people inside and doing what he did with the Nets. That's what he's doing. I don't think there's in any world he would have told Brooke Lopez, go start shooting threes. Like, I don't see him thinking that far outside the box to try and do that. Now, Doc knows that today's game is about the three. Obviously, I get that. I was hearing rumblings, reading rumblings, whatever else, that apparently this front office is looking at the Pacers like, yeah, we want to play like that. Yeah, we want to be like that. Yeah, well, okay, but you have to have the personnel, number one. Number two, look at how they built that team. That team was built through trades more than it was even built through the draft, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Bucks have to go about reimagining this roster in different ways, right? Clearly. What I'll say about Doc is this. 2 years left on his deal, which effectively, as we all know, whether you're a free agent or not, 2 years left means 1 year left.
Right.
Which is why the Giannis thing's interesting, because it's like what the option is, he's got 2 years left on his deal, right? Before they want him to extend next year. So there's no greater agent of change than maybe when there's some pressure on you. And look, Bud, I would say Bud's the same thing. Going into that title year, you know this, Mark Lasry was ready to fire him game 2 in Brooklyn.
Yes, right? He was.
Yes. And things I remember clearly about that year, Sparky, was Jeff Teague when he was signed, PJ Tucker when he was acquired. It was, wow, Bud's adjusting. Bud's not as rigid. Bud's changing things. Guess what? Bud won a title, and then he gets an extension. Because if not, he was getting fired. And I'm not saying Doc's going to get fired. And I'm not saying he's going to feel pressure. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But I guess if you're looking for why would Doc change or the coaching staff change some stuff, first of all, they don't have Damian Lillard, so they have to. They have to. And you have to make, you have to do something different anyway. And so I guess you may not like it, but going forward, that's sort of the trust you're going to have that's what they're going to do, is make things a little different, a little more free flowing around Giannis.
So Jim Owczarski, Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, Bucks beat writer. Follow him on Blue Sky, Jim Owczarski. Of course, listening to him here on Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's on the Fancy. Sparky Pfeiffer with you. What's your read on Porter Jr.? He opts for free agency. Obviously thinks he can get more than $2.5 million in free agency. Does he fit into how they want to play, what they want to do, and his fit into the locker room last year?
Yeah, I mean, definitely widely accepted. I think he bought in, to whatever the role was going to be. In LA, it was, no offense really needed, defense first. Obviously, his role changed as Dame got hurt and came back, and et cetera. Up and down first playoff, right, Sparky? I think you saw some nerves, some pressing early. You saw some progress late. Long way to say, I do think they'd like him back. I do think he really likes Milwaukee, Sparky. I don't think that's good service. The opt-out is not surprising. I could see, I don't think there's going to be a robust market, in terms of tens of millions of dollars. Maybe a slight raise over that 2.5, which is effectively the minimum. 1+1 Sparky, where the Bucks have done this. We mentioned all those role players from 5 years ago. Typically, the Bucks do that. You come back, you do 1+1. You check all the right boxes, and then there's a more lucrative deal coming down the line. I'm not reporting that, but I think that's the thought process. Now, Sparky, what could change is as we're talking, guys are getting bought out. Options are getting declined.
Jordan Clarkson just got bought out, exactly. It looks like, according to Sharania. Yep.
Right. So I think you have to allow for the fact that, pieces are moving, players are becoming available that maybe we didn't think could be, right, in just 10 hours ago. So,
sure.
But yeah, I do think there would be interest in bringing him back. And look, again, like Gary Trent, they don't really have a lot of avenues to 24, 25-year-old guys who could score 50 points or
Right.
have 12 assists in a game. Kevin Porter Jr., for all his flaws, has that ability. And if you're the Bucks, I think it would behoove them to maybe keep that type of player, even if maybe you want to protect yourself with some non-guarantees or some bonus structures type things, to see what happens.
I've got two more. How much do you think Gary Trent makes coming up on this next deal?
It's
more or less than Bobby Portis?
Oh, no, it'll be less. And I think it'll be, I'm going to throw out a 7 to 10 window APY, Sparky. I don't think it'll be less than that but Nickeil Alexander-Walker's probably the prize right now, 7 to 10. And I think, and that's that NTMLE where the Bucks can use the rest, whatever the rest of that is, to get that second player, whoever that may be.
So they could split it between Trent and Porter.
Yes. Or, anyone else. Yeah.
Or anywhere else. Right. Last one. Just need to know. Initial reaction when you heard the Malik Beasley Fed's investigation on the gambling, and it turned out to be the Bucks year.
Look, Sparky, we've both been doing this too long. There are no surprises anymore. I guess there's no surprise, but I will say, considering that year, that's the Rozier investigation, which I believe is still ongoing. The Jontay Porter pled guilty.
Yep.
I don't know if they're all connected. This is originating out of the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York. I can say this is not originating out of Wisconsin. It's not like that was initiated here. Again, we'll see where this leads and what this means.
But see, for me, it's this, right? I don't know about everybody else. I never watched a game and was like, oh yeah, something weird's going on. Oh yeah, something crazy is going on with Malik or something like that. Never got that thought. I mean, I know the report is they're looking into possible prop bets and some other stuff, right? So my concern is, there's a prop bet of more than two 3-pointers attempted, and he's betting on himself to take more than 2 or less than 2 or something like that. That's where I think, as a Bucks fan, you become irate. Now, if the number is more or less 3-pointers attempted for a guy on another team that wasn't playing the Bucks one way or the other, then yes, it sucks. No, you don't want him gambling. But as a Bucks fan, caring only about Bucks fans, that's not going to bother me as much as if it's the guy I'm guarding, I've got over 3-pointers attempted and I'm not closing out. That's the type of stuff that would irritate me as a Bucks fan going into this. Obviously, you don't want anybody tied to a gambling incident. Clearly, that year is a train wreck for the NBA as far as gambling goes, based on all these allegations being thrown around on everybody. But as a Bucks fan, that's the one thing I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear anything involving games in which he played in as a member of the Bucks and having things, go one way or the other because of him on the floor.
Yeah, that's the hard part, right, Sparky? He was a starter right after the Dame trade. In Grayson Allen trade, you went from a guy who was supposed to be a backup, 7th, 8th man maybe, to a starter. And look, the Porter thing is a guy who bet on himself, right? And to not hit certain unders, to fake injuries or whatever it may be. And we'll see where this goes. Again, Terry Rozier's been involved in this, tangentially investigated. No charges there yet. We don't know what's happening with Malik, Sparky, but you're right. This is clearly becoming, or is, a big problem for the NBA right now. Because look, I'll go back to the Porter. We'll go back to the open and shut part of this. Jontay Porter pled guilty to this. He will go to jail for this. He was NBA player 1 in some of these documents. And when you read that, it can only make you think, well, if he's NBA player 1, well, why is it phrased that way?
Correct.
Are there NBA player 2 through whatever?
Good point.
And so we'll see how this goes. And it's just it's unfortunate.
They're making millions. They're making millions. This isn't Alex Karras and Paul Hornig where these guys got to find second jobs. These guys are making millions. It just drives me nuts. The guy's making millions of dollars still doing this type of crap. It's just it's so frustrating. Jim Owczarski, Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, Bucks beat writer. Follow him on Blue Sky, Jim Owczarski. Free agency is going to be nuts, this legal tampering period, whatever the hell they call it. It's going to be crazy all week long. Stay with Jim Owczarski and all his great stuff with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate it.